You need Tafsir Ibn Kathir, right?
Yeah, man, I need that. I have a list. I'm gonna after
Yeah,
we get done.
you live.
I'm gonna send you the list. The
All right,
list.
you live. Go ahead.
Okay, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد رسول الله خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين أما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. And I'm just going to welcome everybody on behalf of the other Imams inshallah ta'ala to our weekly Black Imams Roundtable. And this topic of this week is going to be about family and youth development. So Imam Amin asked me to go first, so I'm just going to give you my take on it. But I want to start by mentioning a hadith of the Prophet alayhi salam. And it's a Sahih hadith in Sahih Bukhari. It's a Qudsi hadith where Allah said, "Man adali waliyan faqad azanta lahu bil harbi." Right? Whoever makes my any of my friends or any of my awliya and an enemy, then I have made permission to have war with him, between Allah and that person. But then Allah says, وما تقرب إلي عبدي بشيء حب إلي مما أفرطت عليه وما يزال عبدي يتقرب إلي بالنوافل حتى أحبه فإذا أحببت كنت سمعه الذي يسمع به وبصره الذي يبصر به ويده التي يبطش بها. And it goes on. But I just want to focus on the beginning of the hadith, because if we talk about youth development, family development, or any kind of other development within the Muslim community, we have to, in my view, we have to approach it from the standpoint of what is pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what is most beneficial as far as, in the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what works for us, and where you're going to get the barakah, because you need Allah in order for these types of initiatives to work. And you want them to work in a way that's going to pursue the objectives of deen. Now, this particular hadith, and there's many hadith like it, but it does just talk about, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that there is nothing more beloved to me.
Excuse me, Imam. Imam
Yeah.
Naeem, could you mute your mic so it can get clear?
So Allah says, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا أَفْرَطْتُ عَلَيْهِ. That my servant does not become closer to me in anything that's more beloved except for what I have already have made incumbent on him, right? And so when you approach these topics, my take on it is that you always look at the Sharia. You look at what is fard on the ummah, what is fard on the individual, what is our responsibility, how do we fulfill the requirements that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made on us in terms of action. And then you go from that into the practicality of how to do it. Now, I'm going to start with youth development first. Now, let me talk with family development first, okay? Like I said before, I'm a strong proponent, and as the other Imams are as well, of following the Sharia. I believe in following the Sharia law to the best degree possible. When you're dealing with solutioning, when you're dealing with programs, when you're dealing with issues, you're talking about political issues, social issues, it goes back to Sharia law. You have to engage the law. And so a lot of times when people think about Islamic law, I'm going to set my watch. So when people think about Islamic law, they're thinking about chopping off heads, cutting off hands. Okay, and it's not that is part of Islamic law, criminal law, but we're not talking about criminal law here. We're not in a situation where we're going to be applying criminal law. We don't have courts. We don't have police forces. We don't have judges set up. We don't have system. We are not in a Muslim country that's ruled by Islamic law. But because in the United States of America, there is a separation of church and state that gives the Muslim great opportunity to apply Islamic law in the other areas, specifically in the areas of what they call ahwal al-shakhsiyya, personal law, or marriage law, divorce law, custody law, child rearing law, child development law, family development law. All these areas of law are, in my view, these areas are neglected, and that contributes to the overall problem and decline of Black American Muslim communities. So let's go to family law. Family law, of course, a couple things you have to look at. One, you have to look at marriage, and you have to look at polygamy. Okay, and you have to look at the contract that governs both marriage and both plural marriages. They're both governed by contract, independent contracts between the male and the female. Sometimes it's between family and family. Sometimes it's between a man and multiple females, up to 4. That's polygamy. Allah says in Quran, "Wankihu ma taba lakum min an-nisa mathna wa thulatha wa ruba'a wa in khiftum an la ta'dilu fawahida." Marry those that please you of women, 2, 3, or 4, and if you fear that you will not be just, then 1 or your right hand possessions. And right hand possessions also is a part of Islamic law. So when you talk about family, you're talking about you have to talk about the marriage first. Before you even talk about extended family, you have to talk about upholding the standard of marriage, making it easy for people to get marriage, following the laws of marriage, whether that's monogamy or polygamy. Now, one of the things that leads to there's a lot of factors that lead to the destruction of marriage, but one of the things is that the overall way that we look at marriage as Black American Muslims have been skewed. We look at marriage differently than we're supposed to look at it. Marriage is a contract between a man and a woman, maybe more than one woman, more than one woman. It could be between families, but it is a contract. Marriage is an act. Like Allah says in Quran, بِيَدِهِ عُقْدَةُ النِّكَاحِ, and his hand is the contract of marriage. And that is agreed upon by all the scholars. So in fulfilling that contract, there's many hadith about encouraging marriage, and so I'm not going to go into that. We know that marriage is encouraged in Islam, but we have to look at it as a contract. It's an independently made contract whose business it is are the people who are contracting, and to a certain extent their family, but it's their business. So today, when many people talk about marriage, you got 5,000 people weighing in on people's marriages all over the internet, all over, Facebook at least, because we use social media now, especially a lot. So people, women in particular, and even men, we don't afford them their independence and their freedom to enter into whatever type of marriage contract that they want to enter into. That could be a contract where, this is the contract, man pay this and this and that. He got to do this. I want this much dowry. It could be, I want $1 million for a dowry. If that's their contract, if a man agrees to that, alhamdulillah, that is their business. That's no one else's business. You can't weigh in on that. I mean, you could weigh in, but then the Prophet said, min husni Islam al-mar'i tarakuhu ma la ya'ni, that the good of a person's Islam is leaving alone that which does not concern him. Okay, and so you have that across the board. So I think to start with, we have to really engage the independence and freedom and the standards of being able to be free to make whatever marriage contracts you have. If the sister who wants to get into polygamy, that is her business. It's nobody else's business. It's not your business how much that man makes or what he does, what the financial arrangements are made, whatever financial arrangements are made between those involved in marriage. That is their business. It is nobody else's concern to weigh in. Sis, you should do this. Brother, you should do this. So a lot of people are scared to get married because they're looking for that perfect situation that everybody tells them that they have to have before they can get married, which never does happen. As a result, we have only 7 out of 10 people amongst the Black American Muslim community are married, which is, I find that disturbing. That's that. On the youth development part, I'm gonna be real short about this. That there are communities all over the country doing youth development. Black American Muslims, as a rule, we don't have that much youth development because we don't really have that much congregation. In order to do youth development, there's two things that you need. One thing you absolutely need, you need funding. It will cost money. I mean, I've seen really good models where they have the Jawala Scouts in Philly, and I think other places too, but in the Jawala Scouts, that really keeps youth involved. It's a type of development. I'm sure other people are doing other things, but if you look at some of the other communities that are doing successful youth development, they're investing in the youth, they're training them, they're teaching them to engage politically. You have, especially in maybe the Pakistani community, I mean, everybody has a type of youth development, but you have in certain communities, well, they have set up Ma'ahid, they have institutions where they're teaching youth, they're teaching them Quran, they're teaching them tafsir, they're teaching them the sciences of the religion, and they don't always go out and become shuyukh or become imams. No, they just finish that program so that they're grounded in Islamic knowledge, so that wherever they go in the country, whatever community they are part of, they do have some idea of how things should work according to Islamic law. Right? And so youth development, once you open the door and you say youth development, you must talk about funding and you must talk about congregation. I don't have too much time to keep on talking about congregation right here, but inshallah it'll come up in the conversation. So we don't want to keep regurgitating the same conversations that we've had for years and years and years. And there's individual youth development. This is how a person raises their child. I mean, that's youth development. How I raise my kids. How I teach my children about Islam. Because if you talk youth development, you have to consider generational continuity, which is passing the Islam from your generation down to the next generation. Because there's no point in developing youth for anything if they're not even in Islam anymore. Maybe they might benefit from, having a job and having social skills. But for Muslims, according to Islamic law, according to the law of the religion that we ascribe to, the priority is the preservation of the religion. You have to preserve the religion. You have to preserve the principles of the religion. You have to preserve the religion in effect on the planet. That's what we're doing. And so you want your child to be successful, and there's different ideas of what successful means. You don't want them to be in jail. You don't want you want them to be normal. Well, I guess there's no such thing as normal anymore. But when you talk about youth development, if you're not talking about collaboration, you're not talking about money. It don't got to be no elaborate finance. It has to be just basic money to run the program. I've seen some very successful programs of youth development where they have summer camp. They focus primarily on leadership development. So some programs I've seen that work pretty well. They focus on political leadership. How to get involved in elections, how to do voter registration, how to understand issues, how to lobby people, how to lobby your city council, your state representative, federal representative. I've seen a lot of that, and I have to say that it does really enhance the type of activism that youth, when they get older, that they get involved in. They're more aware about what's going on in the country, how to look at issues. But for Black American Muslims, I think that we need some of that, but we don't need as much as that as we need basic knowledge of religion, knowledge of adab, knowledge of defense, knowledge of advocacy according to Islam, knowledge of support within the community, how to do that, how to keep yourself grounded, and those things. You need congregation. If you're not talking congregation, then we're just going to talk, because I don't see any way possible. From what I have seen in my experience, I haven't seen where it worked too much without congregation, and I've very rarely seen where any kind of youth development works without having some kind of funding attached to it.
Barakallahu bikum, ya Imam. Imam Naeem, inshallah, you give your opening comments about the subject before we pass it around, inshallah. So you got the two topics of youth, family development, and youth empowerment.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Smile. Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa afdalu salatu wa tamu taslim ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in wa radiyallahu ta'ala an asatati tabi'in wa ulama al-amilin wa a'immatul arbatul mujtahidin wa muqallidihim ila yawmiddin.
Imam, you gotta mute your mic. See the mute button?
Alhamdulillah. My opening comments are going to be drawn primarily from, my personal experience and observation. We know is a hadith recorded in Tirmidhi on the authority of Abu Huraira, who said that the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La hakima illa dhu tajriba," that there's no wisdom except by experience. These words are also in Bukhari, in the book of Adab, or the book of mannerisms, and they're attributed to Muawiyah, radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And so I'm 48 years old, and I have 13 children. I was waiting for the response. So alhamdulillah, from my experience and my observation, and also what comes to mind is the statement of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that he told to Abdullah ibn Umar when he said, "Kun fi dunya ka'anaka gharib aw abir as-sabil." Be in this world or in this life as if you were a stranger, or you're traveling, making its way. When you're traveling someplace, in order to get, first of all, you got to know where you're going. Unless, you like a lot of us from the hood that just get in the car and drive for the sake of driving. And, a lot of us used to do that back in the day without loud sound systems and all that kind of stuff. We weren't going nowhere, but we just driving. But, us Muslims, we have purpose, and everything begins with a purpose or an intention. And so in order to go along this journey, you have to, first of all, know where you're going, and you have to properly assess where you're at. And a lot of times we, as Muslims, we get real general and real vague. Like we may say, what's your goal as a Muslim? We say, I'm just trying to get to Jannah, Aki. I mean, that's everybody's goal. But, all of us, we should have some more specific goals and intentions. And so my opening statements is probably maybe a little bit different than what you will expect. And again, our topic tonight is family development and youth empowerment. And usually whenever we talk about the youth and family and all that kind of stuff, a lot of times we jump into this or that issue. But I think, again, and once again, this is something that we've been driving home, especially our Imam and teacher, Imam Amin. I think one of the first things that we have to consider is that we have to have in place and establish is knowledge. So what does marriage have to do with family and children? I give you a clear example. There are Muslims that I know who are married to people who Allah and His Messenger specifically or explicitly prohibit. They think that this is a lawful marriage. So my rhetorical question would be, how would you expect Allah to bless your union and to bless your children when the union itself is not permissible? It's haram. And I can give a lot of examples with regards to that. So when we're talking about family and children and everything, we should have, our fard ayn. Anything, a fard ayn or the individual obligations is any type of the knowledge for your ibadat, like prayer and our belief, our prayer, our zakat, our fasting, our Ramadan, but it also extends to those things which we're doing. So if we're going to get married, we should know the basics about marriage and divorce and all of these things. There's so many times I sit down and counsel people or facilitate marriage or divorce only to find out that the marriage wasn't undergone done in the right way in the first place. A lot of times, and I'm sure all of you can attest to this, sometimes you sitting in front of people, you're looking for any type of loophole, ruksa, to make their marriage halal.
He froze up.
That's his side. That's from his side.
Imam Naeem, you flaked up on me, man. Come on back, brother.
Uh-oh. You know where the first donations need to go for a new internet system in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, y'all hear that? The first donations got to go to a new sound set for Imam Naeem. That's our first thing.
Good, Imam. Faheem, pick up until we come back.
Okay. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulihi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. First, I'd like to welcome everyone on the live joining us tonight, and salams to my fellow imams here. Assalamu alaikum. And thank you all for spending your time with us this evening, inshallah. And we hope that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make it of immense benefit. So our topic is tonight is family development and youth empowerment. And I think the key for us as Muslims and as Black people, because this is a Black Imams Roundtable, and we are catering to our people who are Muslim and Black as well, not excluding anyone else, is that we have to reestablish the head of household fathers. We have to establish fathers being the heads of households and being the leaders and the navigators for families. I often look at this one of the greatest stories ever, not just in Islam. One of the greatest stories in history is the story of Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam and his brothers. And all of us should be familiar with that story of how Prophet Yusuf alayhi salam, he was left in the well, left for dead. He was picked up. He went through a journey, worked for, he was in prison. The wife of the king, tried to seduce him. Then he went to prison for a while, and then he ended up becoming the governor of the place where he was. And he ended up meeting with his brothers again. So a whole bunch of time elapsed, right? And from the time that he was in the well, Imam Naeem, you want to continue, or you want me to keep going? Okay.
It's up to you, Imam.
All right. Yeah, all right, I'll keep going. So after so much time elapsed, you find in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا رَجَعُوا إِلَىٰ أَبِيهِمْ. And so then they returned to their father. So when all of this time elapsed, from the time when they were youth and they tried to, leave their brother for dead, their father was there, that he was a source of where they could come to. He was the backbone of the family. He was always there. And, we have to reinstitute this in our families having the father in place. You know, and we see many examples in the Quran of the fathers giving advices to their sons. You know, Luqman alayhi salam and Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam. You know, getting his son when he came of age, and you know, he walked with him and say, you know, I had a dream that I had to sacrifice you. You know, so that's one important thing for us with the youth, is that we have to start walking with them. We have to start walking with them. In my experience, you know, there are a lot of programs that people try to get the youth to come out, and you know, they have programs available, and sometimes you don't see the participation that you would like to see with the youth, and that's when we have to start going to them and walking with them. You know, advising them, consoling them, you know, giving them instructions, and sometimes pointing them in the way that we need them to go without them really realizing that that's the way that they need to go. Because sometimes you got to do that. When you identify the talents that our youth have and start putting them in the direction that we need them to go. You know, look at, you know, the Prophet Islam, one of the, always like this hadith that's with Anas ibn Malik, radiallahu anhu. He said he was with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam for 10 years. He served him, and he said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never even said a word like "uff" to him. Now, I don't think a 10-year-old from that time up to this time don't really change. You can imagine what all types of blunders he may have made. You know, all types of mistakes he may have made as a 10-year-old, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam never reprimanded him. And you know, the hadith says he never said to him, "Why didn't you do it? Why did you do this? Or why didn't you do this?" You know, and that training was to help him develop. You know, a lot of times when we see the youth, and it's like we are reluctant to let them lead because, you know, we've been down the road. We know mistakes that they potentially may make, and we don't want them to see the same mistakes. But that's what makes them great leaders. When we let them make mistakes and we let them develop, and we sit back and we observe, and then we just give our input where it's necessary. And this is what helps to develop them. And you know, if I'm not mistaken, and I think Anas ibn Malik was one of the oldest living Sahaba, like the last one in Medina, if I'm not mistaken. If I'm mistaken, then you Imam could correct me. And then you think about another remarkable story when Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he brought Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhuma, he brought around the elders of Badr, you know, and you know, it was like basically, why are you bringing this kid in our presence, you know? But it was a training session, you know, and you know, many of us growing up, you know, we were around older people, and we listened to them. Of course, I mean, I know my experience. I was around people that used to have, you know, these drinking parties and you know, these other kind of parties. They had drugs floating around, and you know, I didn't really remember that, but I do remember just the presence of men. You know, it just made a difference when I seen men interacting with each other, talking and laughing, and you know, giving up some jewels, and you know, come here, little man, you know, and hit me in my chest, and you know, giving me money to go to the store. Like, I didn't know that was training at that time. You know what I mean? So when he brought Umar ibn al-Khattab, and when he saw the potential in Ibn Abbas, you know, it was training to bring him in front of those elders, you know, and he had some advice for them. You know, he had some knowledge that they didn't know of. And you know, Ibn Abbas, you know, he died in the year 68 after Hijrah. You know, and the Prophet ﷺ passed away, you know, in the 10th year of the Hijrah. So that was another 58 years of service from the youth. Another 58 years. You know what I'm saying? So when we get them young and we develop them, and we allow them to reach their full potential, let them make their mistakes, you know, train them, encourage them, give them instructions, and then, you know, we prepare for the future. You know what I mean? And many of the Sahabas, you see their life stories where they went on to, you know, live a full life of a benefit for the people, for the Ummah, you know. And we got to get back to that, you know. Like I said, a lot of the youth that I deal with, you know, they don't want to come around, you know. And, you know, whether you have a program or not, you know, sometimes they just don't want to be involved. And there are other things that are pulling them. So sometimes we got to go to them. You know, we got to reach them where they are. Like right now, we got a program that we're doing. Somebody said I need another better mic system. Am I sound bad? My mic don't sound nice, man. What's up? It's up and down?
It's,
Oh, I don't
it's
know what that's
choppy.
about. Oh, mashallah. All right, yeah, well, that's going to be after we get yours, Imam Naeem. At least I didn't black out, so so I'm still good. So sometimes we got to go to the youth and, meet them where they are, walk with them, and, just give them instructions that they need, inshallah ta'ala. But, as far as family, the father is important, super important. And we live in a society where they're just taking all of the rights of the father. You can't even discipline your children anymore. Children have the right to go to court and, sue you and all this nonsense, So, we just got to get back to that. And sometimes we can do it, without a program. I think I'm going to have to stop, man, because I don't like being clown, man. Like they on my top, man. Mashallah. So I got to see why my system is not that good. But yeah, I'm gonna stop right there, y'all. That's good enough as an intro. Imam Amin.
No, Imam Naeem, go ahead, finish, inshallah.
Okay.
Let's begin in dua that my internet don't go back out. Alhamdulillah. I believe I left off talking. I left off talking about how knowledge is important, having a foundation and basic knowledge with regards to even starting a family and these type of things. The next thing I was going to mention was the intention, like to know your path. And like, for example, some of us may have aspirations to become teachers or scholars or imams. And so if you know that's where you're trying to go, you know what you have to do to qualify yourself to do that. Some of us have trades, like some of us are electricians. Some of us, have professions. Some of us may be lawyers or engineers, what have you. Or some of us may have those aspirations. And so now we're trying to start a family. So we need to incorporate that skill, that trade, that profession, into our intentions. In other words, we have to know where we're going first. As individuals, we have to know where we want to go. And once you know where you want to go and how you want to get there, then it will fine-tune who you choose as a wife. Because we're talking about family and children. When you're talking about raising children and developing families, the process starts before you get married. And so a lot of times, and I'm speaking again, like I said in the beginning, I'm speaking from experience. A lot of times we just get married because, I'm Muslim, I want a companion, I want to get married. And it's just like real general, real broad. And we're not really, taking in consideration companionship. Is this sister, this brother, are they a good fit for me? This is the type of life that I envision for myself. Does this sister fit in that? And it took me a long time and a lot of different marriages to figure that out. And so when I married my wife who's watching now, Samira, we actually had a conversation about goals and agendas, what we trying to do and everything like that. And everything we do, every move we make, that destination, that goal is in there. And once you approach life and marriage like that, then you be able to say, oh, wait, hold up, Hobby, wait a minute. We said when we first got married that we trying to go here. This is going to take us off course. But if you don't know where you're going, you don't know if you're ever going to be off course or not. And a lot of times you just get married just to be married. And the next thing I was going to mention is that a lot of times what I notice when a lot of people give advice about marriage and children and all of these things, a lot of the advice is like really superficial. Like Imam Luqman mentioned, like, how much money he's going to pay and all this kind of stuff. That's like the top of the conversation. That's nobody's business. If the family, if the husband and wife are coming together and they have a goal, and they agree on this destination, they're going to figure out how they're going to get there. Maybe 50-50 may work for them. Maybe it might not work. It's all permissible. It's part of the contract, as Imam Luqman mentioned, right? But one of the things I think that we don't pay enough attention to are family. In other words, when you're about to marry someone, the family that they come from, and not just the household that the man or the woman comes from, but the extended family, as well as any childhood traumas. A lot of us go through a lot as children, a lot of childhood traumas, and these things, often pop back up in the marriage. And a lot of times brothers and sisters are blindsided by these traumas and we don't have a clue how to deal with them. And so I think those type of things should be, looked into. And a lot of these things, a sister's not going to tell you at a sit down. Like, we real superficial. Like, we want to know all these X, Y, and Z, but some things that we want to know is not things that you can ask, you can put on a questionnaire and you have the sister answer it. Like, for example, like a lot of communities have questionnaires. If the brothers have on their questionnaire, what they're going to ask the sister, sister such and such, have you ever been raped as a child? No sister's going to answer that and put that in the Masjid database. That's something that, you're going to have some insight and look for signs of. And a lot of our sisters have went through serious trauma like that. And it affects our marriages. And so everything you want to know is not going to be able to be put in words on a questionnaire and printed out and handed out and you check the box. Life ain't that simple like that. And so I think my third point was, again, we need to look at deeper things. And there's precedence in the Quran for this. But and the fourth thing, and I'll end off on that, and again, this is coming from experience. We have to build and connect to institutions. What do I mean? Like, you have your family, we don't live in a vacuum. You want to interact with other families, other communities, schools, institutions, and these things. And for a lot of us, these things don't really exist. And if they do exist, they exist in like weakened or crippled forms. So, me, myself, I've been working towards and trying to build community on a conscious level for at least a decade and a half. And I've been with people who, verbally espouse the same thing. But then, for example, you're in a community and everyone says, for argument's sake, that we're trying to build community, we're trying to build up our masjid, we're trying to open up a school, we're trying to buy houses near the masjid. Everybody say these things. But when you look around and you see all of your companions who are not rich invest their money on the latest smartphone, on the newest sneaker, or they have to have the latest, accessory, that person is not really serious about what they claim on building, because the masjid is dilapidated. The school is not being built, the institutions are not being built, but everybody got new sneakers, everybody got the latest phone. And so I'm saying that to say that sometimes if you're in a situation like this and you're not part of a functioning institution, you may have to do outreach. Maybe your masjid or the local schools in your area, maybe they're not equipped to teach your children. Maybe you have to send your children overseas. We want to do it here. I mean, this is what the goal is, but maybe in the area that you live, it's not possible. Maybe you have to send your children out of here in order to save them from the streets and have them learn Quran and have them learn this and have them learn that. Some of us made that situation. And one of the early mistakes I made early on is that I waited for people. We working, but we all say we're working, and we trying to build up the institution. Meanwhile, you're losing your children. And you may be dealing with people who are younger who have children that's younger than yours. And so the reality or the seriousness hasn't set in with them yet. So they're still playing, marrying a whole bunch and divorcing a whole bunch of different women, not taking care of not focusing on their children. But your children are older, so your children suffer because everyone else around you is playing. The last thing that I want to say is that that you can't wait because the clock is ticking. Our children are getting older. And so if you don't have what you need in your environment, you may have to reach out or contract out. In other words, you may have to send your children overseas or have it. You may have to relocate overseas, Alhamdulillah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah.
That's my introduction.
والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أسأل الله تبارك وتعالى أن يجعل نياتنا خالصة لوجهه الكريم. I wanted to start with, in my brief opening, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in the Quran when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يا أيها الذين آمنوا قوا أنفسكم وأهليكم نارا وقودها الناس والحجارة. Allah Tabarak wa Ta'ala mentioned in the Quran a command, O you who believe, save yourselves and your family from a fire whose fuel is men and stones. Imam al-Hakim, he related in his Mustadrak from the route of Sayyidina Ali radiyallahu ta'ala anhu that the base meaning of this verse is to teach yourself and your families the obligations of the religion and the prohibitions. Meaning that you learn what Allah made obligatory upon you so you can fulfill it, and you learn what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made as a prohibition so that you can avoid it. And Imam Luqman, in that hadith Qudsi that he mentioned about the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he said, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيْهِ, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا تَقَرَّبَ إِلَيَّ عَبْدِي بِشَيْءٍ أَحَبَّ إِلَيَّ مِمَّا افْتَرَضْتُ عَلَيْهِ, that my servant will not draw closer to me with anything more beloved than that which I made an obligation. I think it is important that for us, when we're talking about family development and youth empowerment, that we understand the basis of that is through our Islam. That should be our lens. That should be our guiding principle whenever we're talking about developing a family and empowering our children. It should be through al-Islam. With that said, we should also not have a fairy tale Islam. And what do I mean by that? I mean an Islam that we don't practice in reality. It's just something we talk about or we read in books. So we have to find out how to take our religion, our deen, al-Islam, and make it applicable to our everyday life. And that is a challenge there, because oftentimes we talk about things, in our mind, how we would like them to be, but not taking in consideration the reality which we face. We live in America. America is not an Islamic country. And I would say that the system of America is directly designed so that you don't have Islam, or you have an Islam that is not Islam at all. So the first thing, if we want to develop a family and to empower our youth, is to teach them the rules of the religion so that they will know what Allah expects from them and what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants them to avoid. And then from that base, they build. With the family, I think we need a new approach, especially in the inner cities. We need the approach of extended family. So when I say family, I mean our masjid, because most of us don't live in a community that's bigger than a masjid. So our masjid and those who attend the masjid need to become our families, not just brothers and sisters that attend the masjid on Jumu'ah or on the Eids, but we need to start looking at one another as the Prophet ﷺ and his companions did. Was when they went to Al-Medina, and even when they were in Mecca, they, the believers, were a family. In fact, they were separated from their bloodlines by way of Islam because they were under attack, and they joined together as one group, and they never separated. And we cannot get a better picture of that is when the Prophet ﷺ went to Al-Medina. Among the first things he did after establishing the masjid was he made brotherhood between the Muhajirun and the Ansar. And they were not blood relatives, but he made them brethren so that one Muhajir would be with one Ansar, right? And they were living together. They were together as a family. They married each other between each other so that they made that union practical. It wasn't just a theory that we're all brothers. No, we actually living like that. So I think in our context, as we always emphasize and we agree, we need community. We need to have allegiance to a leader, to a masjid. And then from there, we need to build a outer family from our bloodline family, which most of us, our families are not Muslims. Some of them we have all Muslim family, but even those who have all Muslim family, most of the people who attend the masjid don't come from an all Muslim family. So we need to embrace one another as a family. And that's one thing that I try my best in our masjid. And it's difficult because it's challenging to make everybody feel we are family. And one of the ways to do that is to tell each other you love one another, to visit one another, to spend and help one another. This is extremely important because the heart is inclined to the one who does goodness towards it, right? So once we establish that family bond within the community, then we need to start having the village mindset, right? It takes a village to raise a child. If we're going to empower our youth, every adult in the community has to become one family, and the youth needs to see that all these families, they're my elders, and they're going to look after me like my mother and father. Extremely important, because we have financial restraints in our community where the youth always should feel like if my mom and dad don't got it, but my uncles and aunties who are really brothers and sisters in the community, but they are my family, then I always got the support from them. So that the youth begin to see a community that supports them, not just a single mom or maybe a mom and dad who's not doing very well financially. Nah, I have a whole support base. Once we get that support base, and I'm coming to an end, once we get that support base, then we need to branch out from our internal circle in the masjid as a family to embrace the broader community, because we have to engage with all facets of the community. We cannot just keep our life inside the masjid and the rules apply there, and then as soon as we get outside the masjid, in the schools and our workplaces, in our dealings with the community, we got to have a sense of influence on our community, so therefore that the environment around our children is an environment that is influenced by our Islamic precepts. In other words, I'm not just going to clean my yard, but I'm going to make sure my neighbor's yard is clean too. Because if I don't, the trash from my neighbor's yard is going to hit my yard. And that's why we see a lot of times we losing our youth, because we're not influencing the area and the society where we in. So this is, I think, the knowledge the building an external family outside of our bloodline within the Muslims in our community, strengthening our community, becoming a village for our youth, and then engaging the society to protect our youth as they grow. And that's my open statement. Imam Faheem, Imam Luqman, is back to you.
Can y'all hear me now? Okay. All right. I'm gonna tell you something that works. Now, see, man, I'm gonna tell you why I love you, man. I mean, I love all y'all, but you like to get real. You know, you and I talk. I like realness. Okay. There's stuff that works and stuff that don't work. And you mentioned some of the stuff that works. Now, here's stuff that works. Okay. Now, I was raised Muslim. Alhamdulillah, brother. I was born and raised Muslim, and our family's pretty big now. You know, we have 4 generations. We have a tribe, and there's other Muslim families in Philadelphia who are 5 generations of Muslims and who are tribe. So about maybe 10, 12 years ago, we actually more than maybe about 12, 13 years ago, I taught a class and we started talking about how we have to extend ourselves as a tribe. And it wasn't because we weren't a tribe and clans already. They already had Muslim clans and tribes in Philly. We didn't call ourselves clans, but we developed in the clans from brothers. You talked about the brotherhood, from brothers who, you know, those brothers are our brothers before we even had children. We was boys then, and we had children, and we still remain tight. So our children end up knowing each other. Even some of our children grew up to be best friends with other people's children. So we started establishing the tribe, the Ahmad clan, the Muhammad clan, the Salahuddin clan, other clans. Like I'm from the Ahmad clan, means that we have my family, because Islam, when the Masjid fail, and sometimes they do for many, many reasons, Islam is always carried down through the family. Islam is carried down through the family, through the clan, through the tribe. Everybody in the tribe ain't super good Muslim, maybe not, but the Islam is in the family, the Tawheed is in the family, and association with the family. So, for example, you take my family, I'm just using mine as an example, but there's many, many others as well. We're the Ahmed clan. We're associated with, I don't know, maybe about 50 different families in Philly, other places. We're not blood family, but we're associated with the family through sometimes through marriage, sometimes through brotherhood, sometimes through length. Some brothers, I've been knowing them for 30, 40 years. We already family. We family just because I've known them for 30 years. If one of their sons come up, hey, man, whose son is you? I'm a so-and-so son. I'm a so-and-so grandson. Khalas, you my family. That's how we look at it. So we start to establish that family and the connection to the family. So it has to be that idea. But the family starts from brotherhood. And then you have within that family, you have a code. There's a certain code. You know, one time my brother wanted to marry one of my daughters. And his father and I, we go back almost 40 years. That's my homie. His father and I go back 40 years in the deen. That's my man. So his son grew up, and I knew his son, he's a little boy. I ain't seen him in years, but he gets older, he gets in his 20s, whatever. He wanted to marry one of my daughters. He called his father. He didn't come to me himself because he felt like, man, I can't come to you myself and ask about your daughter. I'm going to talk to my father and ask my father to ask you, do I have permission to talk to you about your daughter? His father called me. He said, I'm like, what's up, man? Hey, man, my son, he want to know if he got permission. Yes, of course, it's his son, man. Mashallah. Right? Now, they never did get married. She married somebody else. He married somebody. He was, but I'm just saying, it was all about, to this day, I'm speaking of one individual. That boy like a son to me. He got kids. One of his kids graduated from Azhar. They like my grandkids. Automatically because of me and his pops. And that's what the Sahaba practiced. That's how they lived. That's how they were able to do things together, because it was tribal alliances. It was clan alliances. It was different individual things that happened. In fact, I'm going to tell you a quick story. After the Battle of Badr, there was a man After the Battle of Badr, Muslims lost Badr. We know that. Okay, fine. So the day after they buried their dead, the Prophet ﷺ said, listen, he summoned all the people who were left. Excuse me, Uhud. After the Battle of Uhud, the Muslims lost Uhud. So after that was the battle that Hamza was killed to, the uncle of the Prophet. So after the Battle of Uhud, the Prophet summoned all of the remaining people who survived Uhud and said, listen, we're going to go back, we're going to go and catch up with the Meccans and fight them, because the Meccans had left. They had gathered their stuff. We won, they took their booty, and they was gone. But the Muslims were disheartened. So the Prophet said, man, I ain't going to leave it like this. Just get together. And there wasn't that many of them, but they said, we're going to go back and go after them anyway. So the Quraysh had stopped about a day's ride, and they stopped and said, man, we hear these guys is coming. Let's just go back and finish these Muslims off. So there was a man from the tribe of Khaza'ah who was coming on his way to Mecca, and Abu Sufyan and them saw him. They said, man, get that dude right there. And because he came, he said, did you see the Muslims on your way? Because I heard that they coming. He said, yes. So they asked him, what's up? Tell us about it. He said, man, they got a big force of people, man. Man, they got a whole huge people they gathered to come catch up with y'all. So the Meccans then said, well, let's go ahead and get up out of here, go back to Mecca, because we can't do nothing with that right now. We just got finished fighting one more. They didn't gather forces. But the Prophet only had a few men. He only had a few men. But the man from Khuza'ah, and Khuza'ah goes way back in the lineage of the Prophet. So he was related to the Prophet, not directly, but he was like a distant cousin of the Rasulullah. Right? And the Prophet was cool with the Khuza'ah tribe. So the man was like, man, listen, for real, they was mushriks. They weren't believers. The Khaza'ah dude was a mushrik, but he had nothing to do with the battle. He wasn't on each side, but he had a good relationship with Rasulullah, and they knew also the Prophet is like our, he related to our tribe. So he lied to the Meccans, and that changed history, because the Meccans could have turned around and they would have got us right there. So you have to establish these brotherhood. You have to grab it. You have to. A lot of things, Imam, you said. You have to have treaty, man. You have to have treaty agreement. I know many imams. If somebody come to me from Imam Naeem's community, man, who my imam? Imam Naeem, and he came into Toledo, what you want, man? What you need, bro? What you need? What's going on? Well, Imam Amin is my imam. I call him, man, this dude, that's my dude, man. That dude can stay in my house, man, and nobody stay up in my house. That's Islam. You build these relationships, and when children see that, that's what I saw when I grew up. That's what I saw. I saw this guy, he family. It's my pop's boy right here. It's my pop's boy right here. And Muslims need to see that, but they need to see the brotherhood, and they never need to see treachery. Once Muslim children start to see treachery in Islam, that means there's no future for them. They should never, ever see treachery. And so it has to go back. I mean, if you can develop programs, and that's good. That costs money. But in lieu of that, you have to look at their family relationship, family bonds. If you have extended families, you might have there's people who, maybe they're just new Muslim and they haven't established their family clan yet, but they still part of my family. This is part of my family. And there's a respect there, and there's an assistance there, and there's a support there. There's an alliance there. I mean, back in the day, the alliances had to deal with fighting and stuff, but now, it's not like that. But you still have those alliances. That is how Islam spread. That's what the Prophet himself practiced. That's what companions practice. That's what you mentioned, man, how they practiced in Medina. That was real. People you had people who made hijrah from Mecca to Medina, and they had left their wives and left their property and everything. You had Ansar in Medina. It's like, dude, I got 2 wives. Let me know which one you like, because I'm going to divorce one of them so you can marry them. That's a big sacrifice, man. You could have my wife, man, because I know you ain't got no wife. I know you need a wife, and so and so. So people did that kind of things. So you have to. That's the practicality of Islamic practice. I agree. Imam is correct. You can't have this idealistic so-and-so. You can't have all your Islam up in the clouds, man. You have to bring it down to earth and what's working. Sometimes you even have to have a new fiqh for the neighborhood. You have to have a new fiqh of marriage. You have to have new usul, which people don't want to talk about, but I'm gonna leave it at that. But you have to have like a new approach. I believe you need new approaches, but you're just using fiqh. You're just using parts of fiqh that we haven't used. That's all. I'm gonna mention one last thing, because this is important about marriage. Okay, especially with this Corona situation, people have to understand about contract marriage. Now, well, here's what I mean by contract marriage. Contract marriage is that when you get married by contract. I mean, marriage is all contract, but you don't consummate the marriage. You could be even in the same city and not consummate that marriage. You could be in different cities and you have not consummated the marriage. You say you married, you check it out, you do the talking and sit down, but you get married, but you do not consummate that marriage until you get to know one another. Now you're married. Now you over the sister's house, she over your house, you all together, your kids are together. Y'all are married, man and wife. The halwa between you is halal. This is Islamic law, but you have not consummated the marriage. And maybe as you get to know that person or know that woman, she gets to know you. She says, you know what? I don't think I really want to be married to you like that. And then when you have a divorce in a marriage, when there is no consummation, then there's no iddah. That means that you can dissolve that marriage. Okay, we agree, whatever, I went out, or I don't think it's going to work. Before you have sex, there is no iddah. You have not touched that sister. She did not touch you. Everybody's honor is intact. So a lot of times we get married and you go right to the sex. Married, sex, boom. Now you a little bit more invested, but then you realize, oh man, I don't, whatever reason you don't want to stay married. So I'm saying we have to use the Islamic. You have to use the Islamic contractual process that's been afforded to us by Kitabillah. So really, when you're in a situation like we are in now with Muslims in America, man, it's like an emergency situation. There are other areas of Islamic law that we can utilize to achieve the objective. Marriage is a big thing. If people did more, somebody said buyer's remorse. Let's not even talk about buyer's remorse, right? You can get married to a sister can marry a brother, and your marriage is by contract. You are married. You have guardian. You have shahid al-ad. You have the two witnesses. You have the agreement. You have ijab al-qabul. You have the mahar. You have all those things. Wait a minute, son, I'm talking. Just wait a second. Wait a minute, I'm talking. So you have all these things, and your marriage is valid, man. It is valid. That gives you and that woman, you and that brother, the opportunity to get to know each other. Maybe one is here, one is another state. You know, okay, I'm visiting you. That's your wife coming. You know. Now, if y'all decide to consummate the marriage, now you're in for a different thing. But so we don't use those contract marriages, and I think that's one of the things we need to employ, because what's happening, a lot of people are married. When you start opting out on marriage, man, you're already opting out on family.
Imam Naeem, go ahead.
Yeah, alhamdulillah. I just wanted to piggyback off of what you and Imam Luqman mentioned, because it's deep. Because like you always been talking about, the continuity of the family and generational, Islam, passing the deen on, through generations. And it's deep because I lived in Philly, interacted with your clan and the other clans. Now I live in Pittsburgh. And I know the history of how Islam developed in these cities. The same people that established Islam in Philly were connected with the ones that established it in Pittsburgh as well as Cleveland, right?
Yep.
And so, like I said, I lived in Philly. Now I'm living in Pittsburgh. And this is one of the things that I find out here. And it's almost like a phenomenon. You have many elders. Some have passed, some still living. Many of them married non-Muslims. Many of them have children that are my age and older. Their children not Muslim. Their wives or ex-wives not Muslim. These brothers practicing Muslim. They pray in the Masjid. They're active. But when they die, Islam is gone.
Yeah.
And it's not just like one or two brothers. It's almost like it's a phenomenon out here. And so, and even the other way around, sad to say, like when I talked about knowledge and having knowledge about who is permissible to marry and who is not permissible to marry, and these type of things. And so, like I'm literally watching the result of what we're talking about. Like here, like there's some people that when they die, that's it. It's Islam is over. That the branch, the fruit of that Islamic tree is over. It's not going to produce any more fruit, except by the permission of Allah. But that's it. That's the one and only practicing Muslim in their family. They haven't developed any clan. It's over with. Like again, I seen in Philly, where people's marrying Muslims. They having Muslim children. Now Philadelphia is famous. I mean, at least they Muslim, and we ain't gonna talk about if you're righteous or not, but at least you're Muslim, right?
That's right. That's right.
One thing about Muslims in Philadelphia, you can catch them in the middle of doing the most horrendous deed, but they're Muslim and they proud, right? And they're gonna let you know, right?
And we'll come to Juma.
Exactly.
We'll be on Juma Friday.
Yeah. So so at least they're Muslim. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that and just mention what I've seen and what I'm experiencing in dealing with here. This is real talk. So so just to tie it back into the topic, talking about family development and youth empowerment. I know a lot of us brothers like to say, "Oh, it's permissible, to marry a Katabi woman, a woman that's a Jew or a Christian or whatever." But if you're really talking about family development and youth empowerment, you really like gambling. These days, you're gambling with Muslim women. What about a non-Muslim woman? So, and a lot of times you may say, "Well, she may become Muslim, whatever." You don't know that. That's guidance is, in Allah's control. You don't know if that Christian or Jewish woman that you're going to marry is ever going to take shahada. You don't know, So I just wanted to stop there. I just wanted to throw that in there.
And Sayyidi Imam Faheem.
Assalamu alaikum. Does that sound better? Okay. I don't really have anything else, man. Yeah, I'm kind of good, man.
Alhamdulillah. So I wanted to go back quickly, and we want to answer some of these questions, but I want to address one of the questions that came earlier. And here's when I'm thinking about family and youth. I remember when I first before I became the Imam, I was just a teacher, so I really didn't know what goes on, really, right? I mean, I had my own fantasy island version of Islam, until I became the Imam, and then all the stuff get brought to your table. Then you start saying, whoa, like, you start learning stuff, and I remember, and we all people, so we understand. And I'd be like, man, these Negroes is driving me crazy. Like, I had in my mind this concept, but till I realized that, wait a minute, this is real stuff, and this is real life, and this ain't a game. And these people, as you mentioned, in Philly, in a lot of ways, these people are really Muslim, and they love Allah and His Messenger. But this society, trying to be Muslim, trying to mix all this stuff, is very challenging and very difficult. And we run into a lot of stuff I've seen. I mean, just be real. These are communities we living in. Men who are gay, women, Muslims I'm talking about, who are women, who are lesbian, people plotting on people's children sneaking out, taking off their kimar, girls, drugs, this stuff. And I realized, and this goes to the question the brother asked, between fairy tale Islam and utopian Islam, like a lot of the stuff we read in the books is not our reality. And these kids and our families are living in realities. You got single parents, a lot of sisters. most of the women in our communities are single. So they can't find a husband, and brothers don't got good jobs and don't have good careers. So now you got Muslim women with non-Muslim men. Dope boys sometimes. This is real stuff, right? And we always say, oh, astaghfirullah, sister, astaghfirullah. Yeah, what are you doing to change the situation? What are we doing to build our brothers that they can have income that can support a family? You know what I mean? And I know in my area, if you don't make at least a family, a man and a wife, if you don't make at least $80,000 in my area, you in trouble. If you don't, in your family, at least between husband and wife, and you got children, and you live in an apartment with a car and insurance and some bills, if you ain't making like 80 grand, you in trouble. I know this is in Atlantic City. I can't speak about other places. You are having a rough time, right? So these are real things that we got to start developing and thinking about. And then think about the damage while you're trying to be a pious person. Everything around you is chasing dunya, and your children's growing up watching others have things that you can't afford. These are realities that we got to face. You know, I remember several sisters came to me for years, and they walked up to me and they said, Imam, find me a wife or I'm going to fornicate. I mean, find me a husband. I'm sorry. Find me a husband or I'm going to fornicate. Imagine that statement. Like, that's a reality. I've been celibate for 5 years. I can't take it no more. Real issues, you know? So what I would like to say is we got to stop looking at what we want things to be and start dealing with what we really have on the ground. And then you got to have a lot of forbearance with our situations.
Well,
right?
man, just
Oh, 1 second. So, and what I mean forbearance, I mean we got to be able to endure all the stuff we got to face, not look bad at it, and figure a way to build people up. Because a lot of our people are broken. Our men are broken. A man who can't really take care of family. I don't have a good job. I can't provide a nice house. I can't do these things. That do something to the heart. You know, that make a man, and then a lot of the society make women, right, much more successful in the world than a lot of men in the black community. So you have our sisters making 90, 80, 6 figures, and the man is struggling to make 30 grand. Even though that's something that does something to his pride. What are we doing as a community to facilitate developing that man into a strong man and teaching that woman how, listen, this is the society we face. You got to kind of work with these brothers, and you got to help build these brothers up. And the community does that, right? And the same thing, a lot of these women, and I see in some of the Masjid, women who been trying to get a man and haven't found the good man and end up going to 3 or 4 different marriages. And now another brother want to treat her bad because, she ain't the virgin. When we ain't made an environment that allows her to stay married to an upright brother. So I'm just saying all of these things,
take this.
We need to start really focusing in on and coming up with solutions that build a whole community. And I'm speaking with stuff that I'm not speaking from theory. This is stuff I deal with on a regular basis. And I'm quite sure the other imams know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, this ain't exclusive to one area. So that's what I mean by fantasy world of Islam. Everybody's on their deen and we all righteous people and we don't have issues that we confronted with. as opposed to the reality on the ground that we got to fix things. We got to put things in place to make better because we're going to hand this to our children. And if all of us look, most of us been in Islam for over 20 years, some more. And if you look at 20 years and look as leaders, what we've been handed, we got to ensure that we make a different, I'm sorry if my mic is low. We got to make another way for the next generation. And we got to start now. And that means having a plan. And as the brother Abdullah mentioned, we got to have goals. We got to have a strategy. We got to have benchmarks where we start studying. All right, we achieved this. Now we going to this. Now we going to that for our long-term goal. So I think setting up in our communities 5-year plans, 10-year plans, 20-year plans with every aspect, and then using the people in our community who would help us do that. Because I learned quickly, and I'll close with this, I'm not a psychologist. And a lot of our people need mental help. That doesn't mean they bad. They've been in trauma. They've been in broken families. They've been abused, men and women. There's some men that are scared of their wives. I mean, I've seen it. Like, yo, bro, are you a man? But the guy's trying to keep a wife. So what he want to do is, I don't want to lose this one too. So he start eating anything. I mean, it happens. And so it ain't just the women. Sometimes it's the men. And then you got these children who may be in households where they didn't grow up with a father. And then they saw the man treat their mother bad. And I've heard children say, I don't want to be Muslim. I don't want to get married. Because they seen bad marriages in their houses. They seen their mom be abused and no one come to help her. They seen their mom late night crying in pain because no one was there for her. And the Muslim community was so weak that they didn't help that sister. So, I mean, I'm giving you all these things. There's a lot to unpack here, but we need people that can help in all of these areas. Wallahu a'lam.
Imam, can I say something on top of that you said?
Good.
I really have to get this out, okay? Now, and you know, I deal with the reality, just like you know, the Imams. Okay. Now, I still have a problem with the Muslim woman who want the Muslim men to jump through hoops to get married. Man, I need this, I want my rights, and then turn around and get the non-Muslim man, the non-Muslim some trim, give him sex for free. I got an issue, and that's real. That's real. That's what the sisters be saying sometimes. Where I can't find a Muslim man that can support me, keep me at my standard, this and that. Man, I'm gonna go have sex with Tyrone. Tyrone ain't got to pay nothing. He ain't got to take care of your kids. So some of this stuff that goes on, it's just as bad. But what I'm saying is that we are in a situation. We're in a level of civilizational decline, headed for extinction. That the only thing, in my view, wallahu a'lam, is going to be straight Sunnah, straight Sahaba style Islam. And when I mean Sahaba style Islam, I don't mean recklessness. I mean that you are implementing the law. I don't care if I make minimum wage and my wife make $100,000 a year, right? The goal is for the family to win. Seriously. So we're the only culture that even looks at it that way. I've married people from all kind of cultures where the woman got the money. If you're dealing for Pakistani culture, a lot of times it's the woman who got the money because her family, business, so-and-so, she got more money than the man. Not all the time, but it's just a common thing. The woman has the money. So she marries a man. She making the money. She's a pharmacist. She's a PhD. She got her father, owns 4 or 5 7-Elevens and so on. Right? The man don't have that, but that's the dude she like. She empowers her husband. I never seen the question, well, my wife make more than me. And no, man, because that's our thinking, man. In Islam, it's about the family. It's not about who make more money. If the wife make more money than the man, help the man. What are you talking about? That's your brother. That's your husband. Make it work. We bought into that gender war BS, man. And the gender war that came through the feminist wing, But gender wars in Islam, that's totally against our scripture, totally against our Aqidah, totally against the foundations of our religion. It's never been about the woman against the man. And so those arguments are all moot points, right? From the Sahaba, from the Sharia perspective. You look at the Sharia. So my thing is that, hey man, if we're in such a bad situation right now that you have to really go back to Kitab Allah. What's lawful in Islam? It can't be about stigma. Can't be about what society thinks, what they think. And listen, and sometimes some of the ideology, some of the false ideology that creeps into Islam, you gotta smack it down. Some stuff is straight kufr, straight nifaq. You can't play with it. You can't be, well, no man. If it's kufr, it's kufr. If it goes against Kitab Allah, it goes against Kitab Allah. We don't have the time to experiment anymore. We don't have the time to experiment with any more false ideologies about marriage, about divorce, about the law, about the Sharia. Yeah, we should uphold justice at all costs. Nobody needs to be abused. I've always been stood against abuse. People know my feeling about men abusing women. Now, I still believe in Sharia law and that kind of stuff. You abuse a woman, you beat her up. Guess what? You're supposed to get beat up. That's how I was raised. You abuse a woman, you beat her up. You supposed to get beat up. That's I still got that in my mind. You're supposed to get beat up. Either submit to getting beat up and then we be friends and we love each other, mashallah. We should do that in the masjid. You come in, you beat up your wife. Okay, she ain't called the cop. Listen, let us whoop you behind, nigga. And we would do it. We beat him down. Then we hug him. We be all crying. Brother, we love you, man. We love you, man. He be all hurting and stuff. His face be all jacked up. His stomach be all messed up. We love you. You are brother, man. You are brother. Just don't beat your wife. Just don't tell him what happened.
Imam, you do that now, them cats going to the police station.
That's why we stopped, because the cats. I'm telling the cop, I'm calling, man. Had the cops come to the masjid, man. We had to stop that, man. I mean, you know what? I'm not advocating anybody to do that. But back in the day, you beat up a woman, man, you would get served, Doc. You would get served. Even today, you would get served, but on a sneaky tip, right? But that's Sahaba style. That's Sahaba style. That's ayn bil ayn. That's eye for eye. We know in the Sunnah the Prophet saw somebody had assaulted somebody, and the Prophet said, okay, listen, let him assault you. That's the Sunnah, right? And so sometimes the stuff is so bad now that we ain't got time to play pie in the sky. Go follow the Sharia. I'm not saying break any laws of Islam. Seriously, it's just listen. If you want to get married to your brother, okay, you got PhD, you got master's degree, you make $80,000 a year, man. You know damn well the average black man making $80,000 a year. That ain't the reality. That's not even what happened. Go ahead, bro.
I wanted to comment on what you just mentioned before, like, about, brothers putting their hands on sisters and stuff.
I ain't for that.
One of the things that, like, when we actually listen to the children who are now adults and the women, one of their big complaints is not only what was done to them, but what's even more hurting is how it gets brushed under the rug, and people that knew about it didn't say anything about it and act like it didn't happen. That makes it worse.
It does,
because then they have to see, live with, be around, pray next to who.
I never listen. My mother made me promise
beat
to her.
them or abused them or what have you. Yeah, and so like it's important that. Okay, even though we may not be able to do what we used to do 20, 30 years ago, we have to do something. We have to do something. And sometimes, sometimes we have to put ourselves at risk.
I got to send the squad.
That's my opinion. Sometimes we have to put ourselves at risk. Because I think that, it's a lecture season. We always talk about the lesser of two evils. I think the lesser of two evils is you got one evil of letting somebody abuse, molest, or violate a child or a woman and act like it don't happen, do nothing about it. Then you have the other evil of doing something about that situation. Then the brother or brothers who do something about the situation getting in trouble. I think that the second one is the less of two evils than not doing nothing about it.
I agree. Don't get me started on child abuse, man. Don't even talk about the children, because I get emotional about you talk about the child abuse, man.
Yeah.
Seriously, I'm not even gonna say what I think about that. But we have to just follow the law, man. I think if we slowly, maybe quickly, get back to having legal standards amongst Muslim communities, especially in marriage and advice. You have to change you have to change the narrative, because much of the way that we approach marriage in Black Muslim America today is influenced by the feminine onslaught into the Black Muslim community, which some of it may have been good, some of it may have come in the guise of protecting women, of trying of helping women who are victims of abuse and that kind of stuff. But you did have a feminist ideology that was anti-male, it was anti-marriage, there was anti-fidelity, there was anti-contract. And anytime you have something like that, like modern day feminism, that has had a big impact on Black American Muslim women, is that we're just now uncovering. We're just now uncovering the damage, the psychological damage, the spiritual damage. It single-handedly, I think, more than anything else, it changed the basis of our moral psychology when in respect to marriage. And we have to look at how deep that goes, right? I'm not a psychologist, and I know people who have problems, but I'm a strong advocate. What is the law? What is the law of Islam? What is the law of marriage? What is the law? If I get married and I'm broke, and my wife said, listen, I make $60,000, dude, so I'm marrying you until you know, man, I save 40. I'm gonna give you something to start a business so you can help. In the meantime, I got this, and you get this. We got it. We done. That's Islamic law. If they agree contractually, if the woman agrees to that, and the man, it ain't nobody's damn business, man. And so what happens? We set up these different false expectations about marriage and stuff that doesn't even exist in reality. If we know that there's a bias against Black American men in the workplace, in the prison system, criminal justice, or if you know that exists, then you already know your man going to be coming at you short. You know that. So don't act all crazy. Don't act funny now. Well, he need to make so. That's just Islamic whack jobism, man. So we got to stop the whack job Islam, man. And I'm not saying I don't believe in doing anything outside of the Sharia. I don't think going outside of the Sharia is necessary. I think you can do inside the Sharia, inside of the Sunnah. Follow the Sunnah.
Imam, can we all open up what we have? Because I want to get some of these questions because we want people to be involved. So, Naeem, could you go look through the questions? Just bring your mic on. And if it's a question, bring it in. But I want to have some open dialogue between us. But
I want to answer your question about the mahar. Somebody asked about the mahar.
All right, let's try to make all of them like 1 minute answers, Imam. Go ahead. Yeah, you got to be quick mufti, man.
No, you're right. But hey, man.
Give a quick ball.
I know, man. May Allah forgive me, man.
Our brother Salah, he said, requiting violence with more violence is a fundamental flaw in the way our communities think. I feel very strong on that. Perhaps you all can touch on that. Personally, I don't believe it's just simply requiting violence with violence. Allah talks about pushing back. If it weren't that Allah had used the strength of some of you against others, there would have been oppression, on the earth. And so basically, sometimes when people are aggressive and are oppressing people, the only way to stop that is to meet it with a like or greater force. And I could tell stories. I remember a call came into the Masjid where this was back when people still had house phones and stuff, but a sister called the Masjid while her husband was beating her. You heard the commotion, you heard the fear and everything in her voice while she called the Masjid. Sister, give us your address. We jumped in the car, went to the sister's house while it was happening. And when we got there, the brother was gone. Now he calling his house from a payphone. This one we still have payphone. Calling his house from a payphone, like, why your brother's in my house? I'm like, come back and find out. So like, hey, brother, mashallah, brother, hold up. Unball your fist, brother, and don't hit your wife. Listen to this verse. Sometimes that don't work. Sometimes, the threat of force has to be there to stop.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Can I share something?
That's my opinion on it. But
about that, right?
Yeah.
And you said something easy. I don't know. I think it was you, Imam Naeem. And I'm not at all, and that's why I said real. I'm not at all in favor of not having some standards of discipline within the community, right? Like, I know for sure if you don't have security, if you don't have some hands-on people,
Yep.
people will run amok. Not just black, Pakistanis, Egyptians. I went to Juma just Friday. We had Juma. So, we got COVID-19, you got to have social distances. These are at the door of the masjid talking about fighting. Pakistani want to beat up an Egyptian, right? But they're doing that. We have a rule that if there's going to be some fighting, it ain't going to be y'all fighting, so don't try it. Had we not have that in place, they would have been in front of the masjid fighting, like they do at other masajid. But in our masjid, they know you start that, you're going to get what you're looking for, right? And that is not inconsistent with Islam. There is security. You can't go in and do whatever you want. It has to be someone to repel evil. That's a job.
That's true.
Just because we don't live in an Islamic country, we got our own little society within the society, and it needs to be understood. You can't do whatever you want. And that doesn't mean everything is going to be answered with violence, but you're going to be warned, and if necessary, you're going to be physically removed. And that's not against the sacred law.
Nope. No, you're right. You're right.
So that should be the last result, as Allah said. I mean, the Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever among you sees a munkar, let him change it with the hand. If he cannot, with his tongue. If he cannot, with his heart. And that is the weakest of faith. So there is a level for people in authority to actually change things by the hand.
Absolutely.
And usually that is the position of those in authority. And then what you can say, well, you're not in authority. Okay, I'm in the authority in this place. So that's our authority. And these are people, this is security, this one's for this. So all these have a position. You're not going to undermine the authority of community, right? You're not going to do that. So, and I think if we allow that to happen, that's how our communities fall short.
Of course, man.
And no community, no organization, even if you go to the store, you can't go in the store and do what you want. There's a security. And he may not be a police officer, but if you do something in that store, he's going to stop you. Just in the local store.
He might shoot you.
So what about the masjid? What about Baytullah? It should be some rules. It should be some rules. I mean, that's just my answer on that.
But I just wanted to say real quick.
If you don't want any physical contact, behave yourself.
But back in the day, we used to carry have boxing gloves at the masjid. So when two dudes start talking stuff, we get out the gloves, man. Nobody lasts more than 10 seconds. You get brothers, yeah, nigga, give them the gloves. I used to keep boxing gloves in my trunk. But no, man, what you're saying is right. But just go back again. I just want to reemphasize that a lot of the issues that we talk about in the Black American Muslim community, it has directly to do to the inadherence to law and legal standards and Sharia, into code, into contract. So many things could be alleviated or could be made better if we just apply law to it. I mean, law. You can bring in law incrementally, specifically in marriage and divorce. It's the law. People should know, Imam Naeem mentioned earlier, they should know what is incumbent upon them, but they should know about the latitude afforded to us according to the law of Islam. That way, we don't block ourselves in to having only 3 or 4 options when the law gave us 10 options on the same matter. That's what I'm saying, and that takes a minute. But it goes back to the stuff that we were talking about. You said, man, like knowledge, but you have to have law. Listen, I grew up in Dar Islam, and like other groups, that's just my personal that I grew up in. In Daughter Islam, we had an Amir, and I know, even in with the Sheikh and other communities, it's pretty much the same. It's the same because it goes back to the concept of the Prophet ﷺ, that you had Amirs for everything. We had an Amir for Qadha, that if people had difference of opinion, we had a Qadi. We have a brother, he was a judge. Now was he trained in Azhar, PhD in law? No, he wasn't. But he would do research, and we would trust whatever he came up with, so that you wouldn't have festering arguments in the masjid. That's what the Imam comes in for. So when you have a situation, you're saying this, he's saying this, you take shorter, but they're still arguing. That's what the Imam would come and say, boom, boom, whatever Imam say, that's it, we move on. And so you have to have some sort of a system of governance, of law, of Sharia, personal law, marriage standards, contract. If you do not have these things in any Muslim community anywhere on the planet Earth, then that civilization will end up being a failed civilization. Allah knows best.
But here's what I'm saying about Imam when we talk about the Sharia, right? And we got to keep this in context, right? We're working with what we have as a community. And I'm especially when I'm talking about the inner city, predominantly African-American communities. No one is going to help us achieve what we need to achieve but us, with the help of Allah. I think we need to realize that. Throw in the towel, somebody going to come and solve your problem. They don't even want to deal with your problem. And guess what? And that's good for us, that somebody's not going to help us. The problem is that we have to realize that. Then do what we have to do. You got many fiqh councils all around the country, and I know you know a lot of them. None of those fiqh councils are dealing with the problems in the inner city. They're not dealing with that. They don't even know how. I remember he said something to us. He said, whoever judges a people, he's talking about Islamic judge, whoever judges the people without knowing their condition and understanding their condition, he is mujrim, he's a criminal. You heard that? So whoever judges the people without knowing and understanding their condition, he is a criminal. So only one understand our conditions is us. We live them, we know them well, we come from them, right? So we got to deal with that. And we got to learn how to address our problems. You want to know one of the biggest reasons why I'm so hard on Wahhabism? Did you ever know why? You ever figure that out?
Nope.
Anybody? Naeem, you know what? You ever figured out, Imam?
Because you're harder than them mugs, that.
No, let me tell you.
I'm hard on for a different reason, though.
Did you ever know why? Did you ever think, why is he like that?
I figured because you fight him locally. That's why. That's what I always assume, because you're dealing with him locally.
I'll tell you why. Because I believe that has become one of the biggest problems for us unifying.
Yeah.
And if we don't never unify, we'll never solve our issues. Because everyone will have their own fiqh, their own understanding of Islam, and no one will listen to the other, right? So give an example. When everyone says, I follow Quran and Sunnah on their own, are they going to listen to you, Imam? Are they going to listen to you, Imam, Faheem, Imam Naeem? No, because everyone is doing what the heck they want. Where they get that from? They got that from that concept. So therefore, that concept has made it that we will never build in our communities. As a whole, I'm not talking about an individual community. An individual community was all on the same page, they may build something. But as a collective, in inner city, we're going to get destroyed if we don't have a system and structure by which we can function, right? Because you're going to give a ruling, right? A judgment. And when you give a judgment, they're going to say, I got a hadith, I got a verse of Quran, even if it don't make no sense. But I don't have to listen to you. I got an opinion, you got an opinion. There's going to never, ever be cohesiveness and unity in thought. If we don't have unity in thought, we're never going to have allegiance. We're never going to have bayah. We're never going to have strong communities, and we're never going to build anything. That's why I'm so hard on it.
I'm still for going back to the Madhab. Man, let me answer a question somebody asked about professional help, because I think we need to clarify this, okay? Because mental health is an issue and professional health is needed, but you have to keep in mind we're still Muslims. We're still Muslim first and foremost. So even if you're dealing with professional psychological help, you have to understand the motives, the proficiency of modern day psychology, whether or not they're just going to be prescribing drugs to you, whether or not that their diagnosis is accurate, because psychology is not based upon science. Modern psychology is nowhere, it's not based upon science. In my classes, in psychology class in college, it's not based upon science. It's, you know, it's based upon theory, it's based upon trials and tribulation, but you can't take modern psychological standards and apply them to Muslim minds and come up with diagnosis, because it always comes out not in our favor. It always comes out taking out the God factor. So any type of analysis or any type of psychoanalysis that anybody does on the Muslim and takes out the God factor, takes out the fact, La ilaha illallah, the fact that that person, take out scripture. So if psychology contradicts scripture, then I'm going to pick scripture every time. And I don't think that that's the answer too. And then if you talk about psychological help, man, all this stuff costs money. All this stuff costs money. That's where Muslims, that's where a breakdown is. All of this stuff costs money. You have to pay somebody to be the psychologist for Muslims. Islamic psychology has not even been developed that much. In fact, I knew one of the, what they call the father, if there's a father of a modern day Islamic psychology, is Dr. Malik Bedri. He's still alive, but he was a friend of my father's in Sudan. He wasn't really my direct sheikh, but he was like my uncle. I look at my uncle, Dr. Malik Bedri. He wrote a book called The Dilemma of Muslim Psychologists. He wrote that book, I think, in 1984. It's a little yellow book, and that's the only book I've seen so far on Islamic psychology. And so Islamic psychology as a science, it has not been developed. You have the Black Muslim psychologist. You have also another psychology, Muslim psychology organization based out, I think, Chicago, somewhere in the Midwest. You have those two that I know of, but it is not a science yet. So no, we should not turn over our Muslims to modern day psychology. I've seen it damaged. The first thing I've seen it damaged with women who've been wounded, women who've been going through trauma. Some trauma can be expiated. Some trauma needs to be left alone. So when your basis of psychology is to relive all of your trauma, relive 30-year trauma, to relive, make you go through it again. We believe in Islam and af. We believe in qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is our belief system. That's the belief of Islam. So I'm going to say one sentence. I don't think that there is any room anymore for us as Muslims in America to subject any of our beliefs, any of our aqidah to modern psychology, to modern politics, or to any other ideology, that contradicts our scripture. Now, if it agrees with our scripture, we can work with it. If it contradicts our scripture, no. I think it's
Amen. Because I want to ask a question about that.
Yeah, because K. Rashid Bey, she said in relation to what you were saying, what you were saying, that there are Muslim professionals, Luqman, and I wanted to piggyback in what both of y'all are saying, that a lot of these Muslim professionals in the field of psychology, they don't have a basis in Islam. What I'm seeing now is like a complete parting of the ways. The Imam, he's antiquated, he's toxic. Imam can't do everything, and Imam can't do everything. But he's not a mental health professional, so completely ignore him. We got Muslim mental health professionals. They don't know, not all of them, obviously, but a lot of them don't have any foundation of the deen. So they take their professional training and superimpose it on a Muslim and a Muslim reality, and some of the things is not consistent with Islam. But the Muslim mental health psychologists don't have enough basic Islam to know the difference. So there needs to be some working together. Alhamdulillah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Because I got it.
No, go ahead.
I think this, I would like, and I'm going to ask y'all, I would like to get some of those Muslim psychology professionals, and I would like to put them with real imams, grassroots imams, because I do notice, and they're listening, so you're welcome to come, because I want to have this discussion, because I think it's not a either or. I think we need to sit down and figure out a how, right? Because it becomes us against them, and that doesn't help none of us, right? And that's what I've seen. The imams, especially the grassroots imams, because they bring people, because you got the renegade imam, the imam without a community. You know him, right? All right.
Rambo imam.
Yeah, right.
Coming on a Facebook Live near you.
Yeah, right. So you got the imam who's imam YouTube, imam Facebook, imam internet, but no imam real community. Right? And I notice sometimes they team up with these professionals because they ain't a real imam. Grassroots imam who deal with real people, real problems every single day. That's a real imam.
And when you listen to their lives, you hear the vitriol towards the imams. It's almost like, see, I got a platform now. See, the imam, he can't say nothing because this is our platform now with our profession and such and such and such and such.
So what I would like to see is, because we do need them.
You do need them.
We need them within the proper context, just like they need us.
And it's not all false knowledge either, because my little bit of study of psychology, because I took psychology class just to understand, I learned a lot about trauma. I didn't even understand about trauma until I started to study psychology and about childhood trauma and the effect that it has and behavior. Like, I learned a lot, so it's very factual. And there was a black Muslim Psychologists Association, something that they're trying to do, but the thing about it, when we talk about these kind of studies, we don't have funding. You need money.
But here, let me ask you something, Imam. We got the money part. We're going to get to that.
It needs to be a journey, man. I agree with you 100%.
But here's what I want to ask this, right? Because I remember sitting, and one of my teachers, Sheikh Salman, he's a doctor. But he's not a psychologist. He does internal medicine. And he's a scholar of the Quran and everything. And people used to come to him and they'll say, I think I'm working with a jinn. Everybody got a problem as a jinn, right? Samuel says, Imam,
things are problematic.
Right? He's not working with a jinn. He needs a doctor, right? Like, he doesn't have a jinn. He doesn't need ruqya. He needs a doctor. He got mental problems. And we're not qualified to deal with that, right? And so don't try to get him ruqya, get him a doctor, right? But now here's the catch. What I want to do is this. I want to have that conversation, and that's going to be a touchy one, because it's always been an antagonistic relationship. So we have to be prepared to deal with the emotional scars that come with rejection. You follow what I'm saying?
That's just the okay on there, too, because she's a sociologist. She's a medical professional. And
all you got to do is
there's other people too. I happen to know her.
I think next week, because we got to come to a close, I think we need to talk about from the imams and maybe one or two health professionals. So pick your best that got thick skin, because when you have these conversations, you got to have thick skin. So maybe one or two, and we sit down and have these discussions, because I think we're never going to build community till we get rid of a lot of this trauma.
Yeah.
I think we're never going to get no money, because it's trauma why people don't give money a lot. I've been burnt. I'm not giving. I gave my money to the Masjid and it didn't go where I thought it went. That's trauma. You're scared to spend. So I think we need to, if we're going to tackle communities, we have an opportunity. It's open. And I think we need to explore all of these things. So those, you see my thing, just put inbox me. This is my profession. I'm psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever your field is, Muslim, and we need to have these discussions because the antagonistic approach is not serving any of us no good. Yeah, trauma and drama, Doc. I agree, both of them. Right?
Amen.
Yeah.
We got another question. I believe it's her second time, at least second time asking. She asked it earlier. Said, question, Imams, how do we prepare our children to marry early in this American society? Do you allow them to share your home until they can financially maintain their own home?
Imam Naeem, you experienced with this. Maybe you should go first.
I believe she answered. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, Imam Naeem, you in it too? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Imam.
No, I was going to say, I mean, every individual situation is different, but I believe if the parents of both the young of the couple of both sides of the family, you know, if it's not only that okay they want to marry each other, but the parents is working together. I mean, it can work, you know, long as you know both households agree, you know, and they can do exactly what she suggested. Maybe the children, maybe for example, can live the way they've been living, but maybe on designated times they spend, you know, the night together at one family's house or the other family's house, or they both move in together at either family's house, you know, until they can, you know, get on their feet. And I think an important part of that is to make sure that we take the pressure off of them to be independent. Because a lot of people think, okay, I'm married, now I need to be independent. No, you can still go to school. We still your family. You know, just do what y'all do. You know, go to school, get all your schooling, and we hear from you. The same way you was living 2 years ago, the same way you're going to live now until you finish your education and your training, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
MashaAllah. And there is also, I think, one of the things we need, and that's part of building community, where the community take active role and get a starter packages for new families, especially young families, where there is, and that's this issue of financially supporting your communities and having allegiance to communities. So like when new families come in, that's a community celebration. So the community is also there to support. Okay, we're gonna get you a starter package, help you get your rent paid, help you get the down payment or whatever you need, get you a vehicle, get you some, you know, things you need. So when they start, they already feel that they are a part of a community and help them be responsible. I think that's also a community responsibility. Imam Luqman?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, Imam Naim, what you said was really key. Okay, every situation is different. Okay, and the Sharia allows that, so it allows marriages to be conducted in various different ways. Many, you know, I know families where they married them off, man, and they were like 10. Like I'm married, this is my wife, and they don't consummate the marriage until they're 18. Like the family's like, okay, I'm marrying you to you, and you're already married to the person. You may only seen them once. They have arranged marriages. So, however people work out a marriage situation, the most important thing, wallahu a'lam, is that you follow the Sharia law, because marriage itself is a blessed institution. Allah says, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُمْ مَوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً. Mawadda wa rahma, love and mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He blesses marriage by itself, period. Even before you get to good marriage, bad marriage, whatever, He blesses the institution itself. The contractual making of husband and wife is something that's blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of Allah, but because Adam alayhi salam when he created Hawa, Allah says, "Ittaqu rabbakum alladhi khalaqakum min nafsin wahida wa khalaqa minha zawjaha." He says, "Fear your Lord who has created you from one soul and created from that soul zawjaha." Right. So when Allah, you got to keep in mind, when Allah created Hawa, right, and breathed life into her, she was already Adam's wife. She was already his wife. She didn't create her. So okay, now y'all want to get married? No. He's like, no. When she woke up and Allah breathed life into Hawa, into Eve, like she wake up, you married already, and so the institution itself, I think, and because we just have variables if we follow Islamic law. There's a lot of ways you can contract marriage, a lot of ways you can set up living situations, and it depends about what works for that family. But when you marry, as opposed to fornicate, Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الزِّنَا إِنَّهُ كَانَ فَاحِشَةً وَسَاءَ سَبِيلًا. Allah just has made zina and the results of zina, He just made it all bad. He just made, when you start zina, because that's saying that Allah, we're going to reject Allah started us off as marriage. So when Allah says, He says, whoever takes other than the marriage and right hand possession, He says, so we don't realize sometimes when we forego marriage and we take alternatives to marriage. And sometimes it's waiting too long to get married because now you're fornicating. All this stuff produces other negative effects in the Muslim community, generational effects that we don't really consider. But if you read Kitab Allah, you can see how it's connected. So I'm like, every situation is different. Yeah, you can get married and have them still living at home. You can get married and have them being close to each other and still not have even consummated their marriage. They still haven't consummated the marriage. So there's different ways to do it within the Sharia. I just think that it's more, I'm going to just finish this, it's more a point of following the law and then following the latitude that's allowable within the law. And some of that latitude is made for dire, stressful situations like we're living now.
But here, Imam, that's another question. We have a lot of stuff to unpack. I mean, like, I thank everyone for participating in these roundtables because we're getting a lot of stuff that
we are, man. We doing it. We doing it, bro.
Sometimes we just got to get it out to even start really working on it.
That's right.
Alhamdulillah, may Allah reward everyone that has attended. Thank you very much, keeping it going, and I thank the imams. I mean, and I think eventually we're going to need other people and voices to be involved, but we're starting the process. So next week, could we agree? What do y'all think about dealing with trauma within our communities and trying to have some Muslim, if they come, if y'all know some Muslim professionals, psychologists, I think we need to have that discussion.
I know Imam Nadim is, he's a psychologist. I know even Sahir Muhammad from Philly. He mad at me because I got him on my Facebook page, but there are some Muslim psychologists.
You said he needs a psychiatrist, or he's a psychiatrist?
He's a psychologist. I don't know what he does, but I know that his work is in psychology, and he's a member of the community. That's somebody who I would bring on board. Because they probably, I trust him. I know him for a long time, but I think he really knows what he's talking about. Imam Nadim Suleiman.
I would suggest
in Atlanta, Imam Nadim.
I would suggest that we get our sisters. I'm not saying bring him.
I'm just saying there's some sisters. There are some.
I think we need our sisters because I've talked to some of them. They've been disenfranchised. And whether we agree or not, that's how they feel. So we need our women, sisters, who are professionals in that field to be on this discussion.
No, I'm all for it. I mean, I do know some people I just can't remember. But yeah, there are plenty of sisters who are I mean concerned, believing women, man, who've been active in behavioral psychology in those areas for a long time. I know K. I'm not sure exactly what she do. What do you do, K? I know that she's a professional, health professional. She, no,
No,
I know her
it's
for a
not
long
like
time. I
it's
know
out.
this shit. I
They'll
just don't.
know. I said, if it's a sister that's professional in that field that would like to have the discussion, you're welcome. Inbox me, let me know, and we'll set it up for next week,
Somebody,
inshallah, next Tuesday.
somebody mentioned Dr. Camila Rashad too. I know her husband. I know her
All right,
her
well,
husband.
do what you gotta do,
Yeah, I'll
and
contact.
we're not, as we say in the hood, we're not ducking wreck. So if they want to jump in, island was silent, bring it. We need
Support
the
discussion.
discussion. Seriously, we do. And we need to hear them out. Because I know that issue is there where they just dismiss. You don't know no dean, shut up. And we don't say that, but that's lisan al hal. That's what it feel like we're saying. You don't know no dean, you need to go learn and shut up, go cook some biryani. Oh, that's me, I like biryani. Right. No, that's not how we really feel, but that's how it's perceived. So, and as my people always tell me, perception is reality. How someone perceive it, that's how they feel. So, inshallah, we got enough brothers. We need some sisters.
No, it's
Right.
good. Listen. I'll make it a
Not just
point of
listen to your brother's
contacting
voice,
a
but
couple
we need to hear
sisters.
from our women.
Yeah, I'll make it a point of contacting a couple sisters, send them over to you so you can put them on, but they can come online next time. I'll do that.
All right, Barakallahu bikum. Inshallah, Imam. We should have a report. We raised so far for this Imam roundtable. We raised $1,190. May Allah reward you all. Imam Faheem, what did you say we should do? You said we need to hold that money to what?
We need to sit on that money till we reach the goal. We got 90% to go. So everybody who promised to give, drop it tonight.
Please
You gonna
make
drop it
sure you
tonight?
put
For real.
in your
You gonna
donation.
drop it tonight? Make arrangements by the end of the week. We got to get that money up. Let's
Imam,
go.
put it Imam's roundtable because that's one bill, but we got other bills. And if you don't put Imam's roundtable, I'm assuming it was for Masjid Muhammad and it will be used appropriately. So
Look
make
at the bottom of this video to see how different ways you can pay.
make sure you put Imam's roundtable. And there might be a need investment to uh, upgrade Imam Naeem and Imam Fahim's audio sound. That was an agreement. If you can't hear them, I don't know. So we might have to use some of that to figure out what's the problem. But inshallah, I thank everyone. We thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. As the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, whoever has not thanked the people has not thanked Allah. Without y'all, there will be no us. And we thank you for your participation and your diligence every week. Please press the share button. 10K is not hard to get. We do have a long way. All we got to do is be committed to something.
All people gotta do is give money, man. Seriously, all they gotta do is like, okay, give
Be
whatever.
consistent.
Drop it
Be consistent.
tonight.
Last week I said I would pay $100 last week and $25 every week. I pay my $100, so this is like a bill to me. So when I get off here sometime tonight, I'm going to pay $25. Every time we come on live, I'm giving $25 each time. So the best way to not forget is to be consistent with it.
And those
Man,
among
listen.
us,
Hold on, man. I dropped 100. I got the Masjid to drop 100, and I got a couple other people to drop 100 that's not even involved in this project. Drop it.
Drop it.
Stop playing.
You heard the
That's
Imam.
it. Give it up, man.
and believe me, what we want to do, as Imam Luqman reminds you all the time, we're not going to be effective if we ain't willing to spend no money. I tell everybody this yesterday. Was that yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I had to spend $700, $600 or something in the masjid to fix the fire exits. The fire said, all this got to be replaced. If we didn't have money, we'd been in trouble. Got to do it. Money is not free. Islam is, to say La ilaha illallah is free. Muhammad Rasulullah, to live it costs money. It's reality. To live
That's the reality.
It's reality. So, inshallah, Imam, your time, close us out, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. I just want to thank you, man, for all the rest of you, because I'm really starting to look forward to this every week. I'm like really like, oh, I can't wait to talk to my brothers, man. ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب. ربنا اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات وألف بين قلوبنا واجعل في قلوبنا الإيمان والحكمة برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. ونصلي ونبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون والسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة. All right, brothers. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.